Ladies and germs, Jamie Kennedy here. Another episode of Hate to Break It to You with my newish, you're not totally my friend, but we're friendly.
We're Jamies. So
Yeah, my Jamie.
automatically.
Hand hugging it.
Yep.
Beep. With my other Jamie, it's Jamie Hanshaw. Now, I've had your husband on. And you're married to Jay Dyer. And you're Jamie, and then my cousin's name are Hanshaws.
No way.
Yeah, so that's why I remember your name so well.
Oh, cool.
So I think about you the other night because I watched the Oscars.
Uh-huh.
And I think that you are the queen of symbolism.
Thank you.
And so and it's going to get hot in here. I'm sorry.
Must be some Jamies in the atmosphere.
Bam. And so there's so many things that you told me about Hollywood and Hollywood Boulevard that I can't go anywhere without thinking about what you told me. So I'd like to go through it again.
Okay.
And I got triggered, or I got inspired because somebody tweeted and said, just a reminder that the most glamorous event in Hollywood is held where a Sephora and a coffee place is. Like, it's held in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that. So what are you most known for?
I guess Hollywood symbolism. So what you guys were talking about with the Super Bowl, high-profile rituals, occultism. I know a lot of magic. I know a lot of history. I know a lot of cults and ancient history, stuff like that.
So we had the blood moon the other night.
Mm-hmm.
I was told to put water in a bottle, and then that's called now moon water.
Uh-huh.
And then if I set an intention when I drink it, it'll help me. Correct or no?
Yes, that is real. So have you ever seen the Emoto, Dr. Emoto, a Japanese guy who was doing these experiments with water, right? And he would say, I love you to one water and I hate you to another, and positive vibes versus negative vibes, right? And then they would freeze it and they would look at it under a microscope later on, and the water that had the good intentions on it was beautiful. It was crystalline. It had the snowflake structures. And then the water with the bad intentions was wacky and it was all messed up, right?
I remember this experiment.
And so this sets sort of a precedent for what you're talking about, programmable things like water. We would make holy water in the same way. So it is a real thing in our church that you bless the water, you pray over it. You're actually changing the structures of the molecules with your intentions.
Who's we?
That would be the Orthodox Christians. So Catholics also have holy water, but we have a yearly festival of blessing the water. So they'll bring a giant pot of water into the church, and we'll have a special service, and then everyone will take some. And it's called Theophany, about when Christ was baptized in the Jordan. And so what we would say about that is that he is baptizing the earth with his presence, and starting with the water, and then that trickles down and cleanses the world.
Okay, so you were raised a Orthodox Christian?
No.
What were you raised?
A Baptist.
A Baptist?
Yeah.
Out here in Hemet?
Yes. So just a tiny little fundamental Baptist church, evangelical. I was homeschooled too.
Totally makes sense.
And then I was allowed to study whatever I wanted. So I would just take my bike to the library and read as many books as I could find. And in lieu of going to high school, I just sort of taught myself everything. I read David Icke in 2006. So
it was in your library?
Yeah.
How?
No, not in my city library. I ordered it from a weird catalog. And I was like, what is the biggest secret? And so I ordered that and it came, and that was great. So when people are going through these stages of grief, when they're finding out about the Epstein files and reality, what's going on under the surface, this is something we've been dealing with for a long time already. The stages of grief almost that you go through when reality is no longer what you thought it was, right?
Look,
Oh,
part 2.
he's cute.
Wow. Let's hope he hides up there. Wow. So crazy. The window open? This is crazy, man. Let me see if I can let the fly out again. Come on, moth.
Go out.
This way. Go.
Almost.
Go. Go. Go.
There he is.
Where? Okay, go, buddy. Go. 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 All right. Easy. Never had moths in here my whole life. But you're only my second pod. See, we don't hurt the bug. We let the bug leave.
That's what I do.
We encourage the bug. I don't hurt ants.
No.
I don't hurt spiders. Nothing. You ever kill any bugs?
No. You use the cup and then you slide the paper underneath and you take them outside.
So wait, you were saying that the Orthodox Church, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
so yeah, I didn't find that till much later. And actually, I had left the church and I didn't go for a long, long time in my 20s. And I started studying all of this stuff, occult, magic, conspiracies. I moved to Austin just to be closer to kind of the nucleus of, you guys were talking about Alex Jones when you had Jay on.
mm-hmm.
So that was sort of the nexus of the conspiracy world at that time, right?
Austin was?
Austin, Texas, yeah.
What year was this?
This was about 2007.
And why? I'm just pulling something with you. So why?
Because, well, I lived here in Temecula, and I was just reading all of this stuff, consuming all of these conspiracy documentaries, the early ones like, Zeitgeist and Prophecy Club and David Icke and Michael Sarian and all the Jordan Maxwell. He's a classic in the conspiracy genre. And I just sort of made myself too crazy to...
Did you lose your mind?
Not exactly, but I left all of my friends and family because they would come to me and I would try to grab them by the lapels, like, look at chemtrails, look at all of this corruption. It's as if you were the only one who had access to the Epstein files, and now you have to live with all of this knowledge and go around and act like everything's normal. And I just couldn't do that. So I was just like, I need to go somewhere where people are on the cutting edge of this new information coming out.
So you went to Austin. You moved to Austin to do what?
I don't know.
Was there a conspiracy groups there?
Yes. Well, yeah, there was a place called Brave New Books.
Okay.
And it was like this underground, literally underground bookstore. You had to go down all these steps into this cold, dark chamber, and they had all the secret books. They had David Icke or whoever was out at the time. 9/11 conspiracies were big at that time. So this is when people were trying to get Ron Paul into office.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like Ron Paul versus Obama. And so I was just trying to be there in the fray of the new media coming out, which was InfoWars.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little show in the same studio, actually, as Alex. We went on Austin Access television, talking about Britney Spears, talking about MKUltra, talking about trauma-based mind control, talking about fluoride in the water.
So you just went on a whim to Austin because you thought it was a conspiracy cow.
Yeah.
What were you in a cult?
No, not exactly. Not a tiny church is not necessarily a cult. We would kind of say that we call them heterodox. So other churches, they teach Christianity and good virtues and moral values and things like that, but it's not the fullness of the church that Christ set up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I left that. I went completely conspiracy New Age, magic,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote a book about magic, basically, and how they were using sorcery, like you say, Sam Tripoli, that they're all sorcerers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I was trying to differentiate between what a magician would be and what a sorcerer would be, because in my mind, I thought, if you're a good person and you use occult techniques for good, then that's white magic. But if you use them, for bad, that would be black magic. So that was kind of my understanding at the time.
Is that true?
Not exactly.
So what is it then?
So I had to stop selling my first book because when they say you reach a certain level as a magician, I would never say I was a witch, but I would back then say, yeah, I am a magician, that you have to write your own system of magic that works for you. So it's very subjective. And I wrote this goofy thing called slack magic, which was to counter black magic, because I was seeing over and over in studying the occult and cults that the devil is real, evil is real, people do evil things behind closed doors like Epstein. They traumatize people to the point where their mind fractures, their psyche fractures, and they can use them for different missions, and to be in a movie, to be a spy, to do anything. Basically. So we learned about a lot of trauma-based mind control. I was like, if the devil's real and evil's real, there has to be a good force for good, right? And that's just sort of how I found Orthodoxy through Jay. And I never didn't believe in Christ, if that makes sense. I just wasn't exactly sure what that meant.
What does the term orthodox mean?
It means straight. Like, so when you go to the orthodontist,
Mm-hmm.
he straightens your teeth. So it's like the right believing way. So anybody can say, I'm a Christian, but that can mean anything, right? That can mean, like, if you say you're an American, that can mean a ton of different things. So what our aim is to teach people actually what it does mean to be a Christian, because you can't just interpret that for yourself. You need some guidance. You need a church that's already established since the beginning, 2,000 years since Christ came. You need pastoral guidance in your life. That's why you have a priest, who they call your spiritual father, who cares about you, and you bring him, it's more like a therapy than you would think.
You're in this conspiracy realm.
Yeah.
And then you really started getting into it.
Yes. And so I would just study this stuff like 12 hours a day,
Oh my God.
And
Why were you so into it?
because I guess when you fall down the rabbit hole, they say you just keep tripping and tripping and tripping, and you're like, whoa, if this isn't real, what is real, right?
It's so true.
Yeah. So, my family would come home and be like, what have you been doing all day? Looking at weird stuff on the computer? And I'm like, yeah. And so that's why I had to name my books
Weird stuff. I love it.
because it was all over the place at the time. One of the earliest ones was called Zeitgeist. Did you ever see that?
That movie, of course.
Yeah, so they're like, money's not real. The Federal Reserve, they're all screwing us over with the taxes, and this is just criminal behavior. The other segment of that, I think, was 9/11 truth. And then the third segment of that was the historical Christ, which at the time I kind of, bought into that. But then when I studied it later, I was like, this text is not really supported by a lot.
So that whole part of that movie where he talks about Christ and stuff and the sun and all that stuff.
Right. So we wouldn't agree with that.
Really?
No.
But do you agree with it?
No.
I have to see it again, but it was pretty fascinating.
So what they're saying is because they have a lot of similarities, like Horus was born of Isis, who was technically a virgin. That would equate to Christ and Mary. But the tales of the goddess and goddesses are a lot more detailed, and they are not as much like the biblical story as you would think.
What? Give me a conspiracy. Like, here's an example.
Okay.
So you said about MKUltra, right? Which is really real.
Mm-hmm.
So it fractures your personality. So tell me when I'm wrong. It's because of trauma, which is horrific trauma, right? Let's just call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through one part of our body,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to get too graphic with it, but that's what it happens, correct? And to survive, you must become another person. So it fractures your mind to compartmentalize that. And so it's somewhere in the recesses of your mind, but now you're this person.
It is taking advantage of a natural ability of our brains to forget trauma. So if you were in a horrific car accident and you were in a lot of pain, your body builds these amnesic barriers, they call it, so you don't remember how bad it is. Same thing about like giving birth. You don't remember the pain so that you have the courage to go through it again next time. So they're taking advantage of these amnesic barriers in your brain that block out trauma. And they have figured out that while you are in this suggestive state, they can program you with other personality traits and actually they call it layering in demons on top of that. So one part of your personality could be total Satanist and the other part could be dedicated to Christ. And so it gets really hairy when you're dealing with the same person, but now they call them a system. That person that they have fractured is no longer an integrated whole person, but they're a system of personalities in the same body.
Okay, so how do they layer the personalities on someone?
So there's a video Lady Gaga did. It was called like Prelude Pathetique, I think. And they are wheeling her on a gurney through a hospital, like a mental ward, right?
Yes.
And in her mind, she is saying, this is luxurious, this is a spa, this is, glamorous.
That's what was portrayed in the video.
Yeah. But in reality, it's a torturous place where other people are being harmed also. And so it's just kind of a framing it in a different way, right? And so you can, when a person is highly suggestible, then you can implant things like a famous victim named Kathy O'Brien says she was used as a courier. So when she's in that state, that highly suggestible state right after trauma, which is what they do to us when you would go to like a Disneyland or something and you ride this ride. Every ride is a commercial for a military industrial corporation. You know, you have Monsanto, you have Siemens.
Yes, which one is Monsanto?
That would be Tomorrowland.
Sponsored by Monsanto?
Yeah.
Does it say it on the ride?
It used to, yeah. And like we used to go to Epcot and they would have rides about like the fossil fuels and the dinosaurs turning into fossil fuels for ExxonMobil, and that was the entire ride. Small World is like UNICEF, UNESCO, and those type of corporations. So
wow.
When you have been shocked or traumatized, then they can suggest to you other things, all the way up into including a new personality.
So go ahead.
Well, that's why you have a lot of pop stars having these alter egos, and even actors too. You know, Beyonce had Yonsei, and I can't think of all of them off the top of my head.
Well, Lady Gaga is 100% a great example of this.
Yeah.
She's everything she does is symbolism, all of that.
Yeah.
So she's just controlled by the deep state. We agree on that?
For sure. But
how do people not realize that?
They don't believe in magic. And you have to believe in occult things before you can even get to what we're talking about right now.
Like so many things.
If you were a secular person, if you just believe in the mundane world, you would be like, well, that's just mumbo jumbo and I don't believe in any of it. So
what does secular mean?
Just like non-religious, like things that you can see with your five sense reality, non-spiritual.
So just people that are normies.
Yeah.
And if they can't physically prove it, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The worst. They're the worst.
Yeah. So you have to prove to them first that this stuff exists and that is real and that is being used against you. So those were the steps I was trying to take in writing these books. And I also wanted them to be kind of targeted to the younger people because I was just noticing they get you from birth to death with this propaganda, right? And Disney was a huge one 10, 15 years ago. So I was using that as a template to show you your entire life is being laid out in front of you by people who you don't even know. You don't know their values. You don't know what they want from you. And it seems like what they want is your energy and your babies and your blood sacrifice and your sweat and tears, like you said, to build up a prison around yourself.
So let's go slow. So how would Disney get you?
Well, Disney is now it's a multi-generational thing. So you would take your kids to Disney because your dad took you to Disney. And they also have this veneer of wholesome family values, right? So anybody who is kind of opposed to the R-rated things in Hollywood, but they would be more open to taking their kids to a Disney movie, we're getting the same messages, only subverted, right? Because there was this whole debacle a couple years ago where they were proving they want to push agendas of alternate lifestyles.
You mean the
purpose.
gay?
Yeah.
And the trans and all that?
Yeah.
So you say that Disney is a straight up controlled op from the get-go.
Yes. Okay, so in my first book, the one I don't sell, but we can talk about it.
Why don't you sell it anymore?
Because it was pro-magic and pro-occult.
And now you're not into that?
No.
Okay.
Pro-white magic. So Disney was
Racist.
actually taken over right after Pearl Harbor. The studio that they were at in Burbank became a factory for producing propaganda films during World War II. So you can look all of this up. It's called Walt Disney on the Front Lines. And it worked so well that they just like really never gave it back to him. And they used Walt Disney as a FBI special informant because he did not know if he was born of his parents or not.
So, yes, he didn't know who his parents were?
He knew who his parents were, his dad, Disney, and his mom. But there was always this weird unanswered questions around his birth certificate. And maybe he could have been the son of the nanny or come from Spain. So it's very occulted, his actual birth roots, right? And they use this against him, and they're like, oh, we'll find your real birth parents or your real birth mother, figured out what happened if you work for the FBI.
Okay. Wait, stay on the Disney, but I have to ask you about MKUltra.
Okay.
MKUltra, I do a lot of voices.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I just do them naturally?
Yeah. I mean, have you ever been super traumatized?
Not that I know of. That's what I'm saying. They say you can bury that, but I don't think I have been. But people are like, oh, you do voices. Are you doing another person? But I'm aware that I'm doing that voice.
Yeah. So during that switch, they would be losing time. So if you are in another personality, you wouldn't remember necessarily what that person did.
So you go in. So when, Nicki Minaj has that other.
Roman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if she says, oh, I know, I just did Roman for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying if it really takes you over, you won't remember that you did Roman.
Right.
So do you think Roman is a character? Or you think is actually another thing?
She seems like a good candidate. So what we're talking about is the Monarch program.
Mm-hmm.
So MKUltra is an umbrella of a lot of different operations.
And the butterfly represents butterfly.
Right. So what I have been seeing throughout the last 20 years is they are putting the symbols of the Monarch program on mostly pop stars, but sometimes they'll do it on an actress, right? But Britney Spears was kind of the first archetype of watching this play out. And now you see how she's doing now with her mental health. And that's another reason I wanted to write these books. In my third book, I was like, if you are, a celebrity or you're in the entertainment industry and you are having trouble with this stuff, then we can try and help you out.
So this is a help book. So take me through what you think Britney went through.
Okay.
Then we'll go back to Disney. Remind me to tell you about Disney.
So we did
She's been performing her whole life.
Yes.
Probably. So would you agree, or did she start as a normal girl, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
So Britney comes from more of a poor background.
Poor background.
And we did this, covered this in length a couple years ago when she wrote her book, right? And so we went through the whole book and her whole story. And so in the case of lower income talent like that, you have parents who are willing to sell their kids to the entertainment industry, which you did that really funny skit in your show.
Child Island.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also kind of chilling to see how far the parents would go.
Well, let's be very specific. You don't sell your kid, but you allow your kid into this world and allow adults to have access to give them a career. So, this is a singing coach. That's a stylist. That's whatever. And so, and you kind of be the parent guardian, but you know, these are the experts. And so that's, and Child Island was basically the bit of how far would you let your kid go to be on a reality show? So yeah, all that's true. I want to be really specific so we don't scare people off. So when we say sell them in, meaning allowing the kid in to the biz. Yeah. Okay, so Brittany wants to perform, her parents.
So she's a huge talent, obviously, from a very young age. Yes. She's got that star quality, right? And her parents recognize that, and so they put her in the Mickey Mouse Club. And there you also have the Justin Timberlake. I think you have Kerry Russell, so Ryan Gosling, a lot of these young Hollywood.
So far it's normal. She auditions, and she gets it. So it's a normal audition. They pick her. So, okay.
And what was that one with the 5 stars with Ed McMahon?
Star Search. She was on Star Search.
She won that. So these are the first types of levels that you have to get past. And then if you want to be the pop star on top, you're going to have to acquiesce to certain occult rituals.
Okay, so wait. So because...
Even though you might not know what.
Because you're talking to me, so like I said, I've never seen this stuff.
Right.
So far, she auditioned. She has talent. She auditioned. She gets the Mickey Mouse Club. You know, I knew people that have been in it. Who knows what happens, but I never heard anything weird. Then she wins Star Search. So now she's in there. So she's in there, and she's learning, singing, dancing, acting.
So with all kinds of secret societies, there's onion rings.
Yes.
Right? And if you're on the outer, you're not going to see a lot of gross stuff that's happening. So you have to go through initiations to get into the inner ring, right? So this is stuff that's happening to them probably at a very young age, you know, and you have to say yes. Or, I mean, there's so much.
How do you know that?
You just read testimonies of victims. So before Epstein came out, this was so much harder to talk about and prove.
Yeah.
Because you have so much footnotes to go through, like we're kind of doing right now, right? But now that we have this, like the boogeyman to name, it's like P. Diddy, it's like Epstein, it's the same kind of.
Yeah, Diddy was way too successful. That's just wild. He was wildly successful. He had deal after deal, and I was always like, that's a little strange. So you're saying horrific things happen?
Yeah.
Crimes and abuse, and so
allegedly, like we can't know that, but we can know what happened. What she portrays now. I mean, she's obviously not well. She was in conservatorship for a long time.
Yeah. So wait, let's stay. So this horrible stuff happens. They become numb to it. And then from there, they are now a product, if you will, of the state.
Yeah, or their parents or their doctors or their handlers. So, you know, a lot of celebrities have these doctors that hover around them and prescribe them all kinds of
You watched the Black Mirror episode with Miley Cyrus? Yeah, it's an amazing episode. Yeah. So, who also could be a victim of this?
Well, I mean, that's a good candidate because symbolically, if we're looking at these, you know, the butterfly would be the first clue.
So the butterfly, so this is what I say. So when a butterfly is on somebody, especially a singer and actress, that means they're being branded by this.
Maybe.
It's a good chance of that.
Good chance. Yeah. And depending on it, like if it's blue, it's even more suspicious.
And so the monarch, it's a representation of the monarch butterfly, which is the monarch mind program, which is, we all know about. Because it's basically the people running the stuff know that's one of our agents.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's because of the monarch butterfly epigenetic memory. Have you heard of that before?
I know what epigenetics is, but no. What?
Just you pass down things to your children that is in their cells.
Yes.
So certain traits and things like that. So they learned that not all monarchs can make the entire journey, but their children know how to get there because they inherited that from their parents.
And so that why the monarch butterfly is because
it's a generational thing. So what we're talking about, I mean, it really goes back to creation in Genesis 6, if you want to start there.
No, it's too long.
Oh, yeah. But so certain families, bloodlines are elite, if you want to call them that word. They have figured out that if they traumatize their children, they can make them more susceptible to like switching personalities like that, or just keeping secrets.
Just generational trauma to control people.
Yeah.
To do their bidding.
So we were going to a lot of conferences of like victims talking about like I was one of these people. Some people were kind of like a crackpot, but some people were very, you couldn't prove them wrong. So before Epstein, before Diddy, you had Kathy O'Brien, and you had just like a couple of people who'd speak out about this, and you'd have to learn from that.
Okay. So Brittany goes, you can't tell what's going to be a success or not. Unless you really everything is magic and you can program. So once she does a baby one more time, I think that was the first one.
Here's what we're watching. And this whole thing goes back to Lolita too, and pedophilia, Epstein, the full kit and caboodle, right? So the younger you can sexualize a person, the worse it's going to be for them. And so Brittany rose to fame, and then she is invited to do the ritual with Madonna that Jay was talking about when you had him on, the wedding cake at the VMAs. So what we call
wedding cake?
Yeah. So what we call these are high profile rituals. So when you're watching a Super Bowl halftime show, when you're watching Grammys, Oscars, VMAs, right? These are rituals of a cult. And if you don't know what you're seeing symbolically, it's going to go right over your head. You're going to remain a normie.
Yeah.
But if you have studied cults, if you know about Freemasonry, if you know about mystery schools, if you know about Anunnakis, you're going to recognize certain things in the performance that are obvious.
What's a mystery school?
Mystery school is like a cult of antiquity that is dedicated to a certain god or goddess. So a big one would be called the Eleusinian Mysteries. And this was in Greek. So it was a secret society that you could join, and they have certain rituals, and they have a profound mystery at the end of it that is revealed to you after a long time of being an initiate in this. So different schools would have the different mystery revealed. It could be like a grain of wheat. It could be the mystery of fire. It could be the mystery of it could be lots of things.
And the Anunnaki is just they're aliens.
Yes.
Or gods.
Well, okay, so in Genesis 6, they call them the Watchers. There's, if you've ever heard of the Book of Enoch, it's an extra biblical book. So it was angels that were set to watch us, right? Because human beings were very new. We're just created. We're tiny little babies, don't know anything. And these angels were just supposed to watch over us, right? But they fell, and they could not keep their hands off human girls.
They fell, meaning they fell to temptation of Satan.
They gave
this is a great way to describe this.
Yeah. So they gave into the temptation, and they created hybrids with human women. And those are what we would call the gods of antiquity.
Antiquity means?
Ancient history.
Okay. So, we'll stay on Brittany, we're going to go back, but I want to go back to this for a second. So the Anunnaki, supposedly, are these, are they angels or?
Well, yes.
And they were sent by the higher powers, let's say God?
Yeah.
And God created this place, video game, matrix.
It's creation. It's not a matrix. So that's where we would divert from like Gnosticism or Buddhism or something like that. Like everything created is good. God did not create evil. Evil is something that you do as a choice of your own free will. So it's not.
You don't think
a
this
thing.
world is run by evil?
Well, yes, because there are a lot of people choosing to be evil. But
you don't
evil
think
is not a created thing.
So why are they choosing to be evil?
They have that free will choice. They have been deceived. And so the angels also, they had the free will to watch over us, and they chose to interfere and create hybrids that were not supposed to be.
So the angels, which are not human beings,
Right.
from the book of Enoch,
Right.
and we're going to call
And
them
Genesis.
Anunnakis,
Right. The Watchers.
the Watchers,
Yes.
the Anunnaki. They're here, and they're supposed to watch these new, like, baby kittens.
Right.
Okay, that's us.
Yeah.
And then you're saying that they were turned on by the females.
Exactly.
And so, but they're not
they
human.
made a deal.
Why would they get turned on by humans when they're not?
They're just that sexy, man. I don't know.
That's your first hole. Because why is that? It makes, if they're not human beings, why would they have the same desires as us?
We're not told that.
I know. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have to put a little flag there.
Okay.
Okay.
So why are they have temptations towards that if they're not human, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
because that's a human thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. They say Lucifer was an angel, was fallen, all this stuff, right?
Right.
So I don't know enough.
So these would be the in Sumeria and Mesopotamia is the name Anunnaki. In biblical Enoch, you would call them Watchers. So what they did was these genetic hybrids who turned out to be giants.
Yes, I know
right?
about this.
And those would be called the Nephilim.
The Nephilim, yeah, I know about that too. So the Anunnaki get together with the human chicks.
Uh-huh.
They have children, which are Nephilim.
Yeah.
Which are these huge giants.
Right.
And
those aren't really around anymore. So there was a war that, like in Greek mythology, also the War of the Titans.
yes.
So those things are not around. But the ghost, I know it's so weird.
No, because I'm hearing a lot about the Nephilims.
Uh-huh.
I want you to say it.
Okay. So the disembodied spirits of these creatures that were an abomination and weren't supposed to exist is what you would call demons or aliens.
So I understand this. So it's basically they had these children.
Yeah.
And they're giants.
Yes.
They're called the Nephilim.
And historically, you would call them like Gilgamesh, those types of characters, the kings. So it gets really interesting because this is the origin of Hollywood and play acting. Because what they would do is have giant processions to the gods, and they would anoint kings by sleeping with a priestess of their religion, the Anunnaki. Inanna was her name. Okay, so she was the big goddess when Babylon, Uruk, Eridu, all of these old, dusty, old ziggurat cities, right? So before the flood, they would have lived there as the king of the city, as a non-human, or like Gilgamesh said he was 2/3 god and 1/3 human or something like that. So they would be the king of that city. And their legitimacy, they say, would come through having sex with Inanna. And then after the flood, it would be a priestess who represented her. And so this is the first mystery cults. It's the first mystery play. It's the first time we get the idea of like kingship, or who has the divine right to rule, basically. Like, have you ever wondered?
Well, you're going off a lot here. But,
Okay.
but I'm following most of this. So they have these children, and they're the Nephilim. Giants. Now, haven't we found evidence of that the Nephilim were here? What's one piece of evidence that we found?
Goliath is a huge piece of evidence. Just the bodies of lots of giants, burial mounds, Native American burial mounds have found giants in there. There's a conspiracy about the Smithsonian that whole thing was made up to actually cover up the tombs of giants that they were finding. Why
did giants go extinct?
I guess humans killed them or hunted them. So, like in the Grand Canyon, you'll hear also tales of like redhead giants used to live there, but they were not good things. Okay, so if you look at the behavior of these ancient kings, they would eat people. They were just roving around, consuming everything,
Okay.
basically, right? And like the trolls of Narnia, you got to get rid of them.
Okay. So we had these giants.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get from that to Britney Spears?
Oh, because so this is where you get your first mystery cults. So every city was a cult to its patron god. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And their processions turned into plays. And then in Greece, this was really crystallized by, like we were saying, the mystery cults. They would have Greek
Because
theater.
of mystery schools. Okay.
Yeah. And this is just the beginning of acting. And because back then you would say you were incarnating this god or goddess into your body and they were acting through you.
Okay, but now we say it's embodying a character and such.
Right.
So when I do a character, am I embodying a character or is it a god coming through me?
No, I mean, this is a very specific ritualistic thing. Like you have to be specific. So voodoo actually is the best way to describe what I'm talking about. Where they say that the loa that they call upon will come down and ride them like a person on a horse for a time, and then they leave again, and you can only incarnate them for so long.
Did the volcanoes in the mountains in Hawaii, those are real, right? The gods?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these gods are demanding lots of sacrifice. And when you study like the very first writings of Sumer and cuneiform and stuff like that, it's all has to do with the offerings that people were bringing to the temple. So much grain, so much sheep, so much.
Why do they do that? Why do they want this stuff?
Because these things were live at one point and demanding all of this
So it's like their food.
sacrifice. Yes, they need food, they need children, they need beer, they need date cakes.
So it's like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's basically what you're saying is like, they're kind of this non-moralistic entities, and they're big, they're physicalized, and they're like, they believe, they need, like you said, the beer, and they need the food and stuff, and then the sacrifice of the children, it's like they're taking their energy, all of that.
Yeah.
Blood rituals, all that.
And so before the flood.
You keep saying this flood.
Right.
Was this Noah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So it was really bad. And they were just scavenging and eating everything. Everybody was a slave to the patron god of their city. Post-flood, there was giants that were after that, but it wasn't as bad as like just what they would say is you were created to serve us. And bring us offerings and bring us children, and that's your only purpose.
Is there evidence that these giants really live? There is evidence.
Mm-hmm. In the first batch of WikiLeaks, remember that? Pizzagate and WikiLeaks, they found Hillary Clinton talking about looking for the tomb of Gilgamesh.
Yes.
Right. And
wow.
When they got there, they were actually on some kind of like occult missions to get certain artifacts because Baghdad is so close to Babylon, which is huge. Like Babylon is central to this entire thing that we're talking about. And that's why you always hear Hollywood being equated with Babylon.
We start to finish the Britneys, but stay right there. Remind me to go back to this, just so I can finish the Britney.
Yeah. So Britney's
her program is breaking.
Yes. So what we saw when she was like at the pinnacle is she was wed to Madonna. Do you remember that? Where her and Christina Aguilera.
Yes, but I got to go back to Babylon now.
Okay.
Hold on.
It's all in the flat circle, man.
So they say that we went and took Saddam to really find the Ark of the Covenant.
Who said that?
Is rumor.
Okay.
And that over there's like a lot of things in the desert.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really about war. It was about mysticism.
At the top, yeah. But war is also still about war because they want the sacrifice. Like, they want people to die.
To harvest that energy. So the tomb of Gilgamesh is supposedly where?
It was supposed to be in Iraq.
And Gilgamesh was?
He was one of the main characters. So we have a couple books about these hybrid kings, and he's like one of the main ones.
And so Hillary Clinton wanted to find the tomb of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
This is in the Epstein files.
In the
She
WikiLeaks.
wrote it in WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And what did she want to do with it?
We don't know. It was just like, locate this and bring it.
Bring what?
Gilgamesh back, because now we have technologies to bring certain people back, like through cloning.
So you're saying that in the WikiLeaks,
Mm-hmm.
there's an alleged
Mm-hmm.
email
Mm-hmm.
from Hillary Clinton
Mm-hmm.
where she wanted to get
The Tomb of Gilgamesh.
and use our United States military to raid the tomb of Gilgamesh and bring it back and then Jurassic Park it.
Yeah. Yes. Jurassic Park is a good example of that.
Do you know how crazy this is right now?
I know. That's why I had to write.
No, but
these
you know,
books.
let's go deeper than that.
Okay.
I talked to your husband, and we were talking about how the CIA is involved in things. And I did a movie called Enemy of the State.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very CIA heavy movie. Now, I also did another movie called Three Kings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fighting for something, but really we were going over the raid for their gold. Don't you think it's odd? I'm talking to two people deep in this world about two different movies I did, which put them in propaganda, and I'm not aware of it. Or you're waking me up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we do
But yet
this.
we're not controlled. This is not a matrix.
Well, there is a false layer on top of what we would see, but the entire world is not a matrix.
Brittany now is breaking her programming. So she did this cake ritual. What is the cake ritual? Is that when they kissed?
Oh, okay. So that was Madonna, Britney Spears, and Christina Aguilera. I think it was a VMA. And Madonna, who we would say she's a high priestess in this occult
I agree.
world.
So I'm saying, when does it change? Like
So she's the one that brought Kabbalah, one of the ones, to Hollywood.
But she seemed like she probably started normal, right?
Yeah, but she's got all of the same symbolism.
She's a big high priestess.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Inanna, the goddess, she would have lots of high priestesses. And what they would do is temple prostitution. So not voluntary.
Madonna is a big, in the programming, sex kitten.
Yeah. Right.
So, okay. So you could call her a recruiter.
It was more watching the symbolism of her passing down a status onto Britney and Christina
100%.
through a kiss, where she's also dressed like the worshipful master in a Freemasonic ritual.
Okay.
And walking down the cake. So interesting, going back to wedding cake, that's actually supposed to be a representation of a Mesopotamian ziggurat with the steps.
Mm-hmm.
So those rituals I was telling you about, that where Inanna would bestow kingship onto a person through public sex ritual, that everyone else would also emulate this at it's called a Kitu festival.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would bake your ziggurat-shaped wedding cake, and it was known as, the sacred marriage of Inanna and Dumuzi. So here's something that you're watching at the VMAs. You've got the wedding cake, you've got the Freemasonic hat, you've got the androgyny also, because
Ziggurat is the way it's shaped?
yeah, it's like one step. It's like a pyramid with steps.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a ziggurat.
Yeah.
So that's always on all these award shows.
Yeah.
The ziggurat is everywhere. So you're saying that is a symbol.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're talking about like the Tower of Babel,
The Tower of Babel, yeah.
that would have been a ziggurat.
Okay.
Okay. Which is also a wedding cake.
Okay.
The tiered wedding cake.
So
For the holy marriage.
weddings are like a ritual.
Well, weddings are a sacred sacrament, yes, but back then It would be a marriage between a goddess and a human.
Got it. So I want to get to this, but give me one. So that kiss sealed the fate of those two, because why?
It's just kind of like when you are initiated to higher degrees in a secret society, and this was done in public. So now Britney is on another level, maybe not as high as Madonna, but she's definitely on her way. And then that's when we saw her kind of breaking down when she went and shaved her head, right? And she says, I don't want them plugging things into me anymore. And she's wearing a six-pointed star. And she goes to like a barber in the valley, and she says, shave it. And the girl says, no, I can't because you're Britney Spears. And Britney takes the clippers and does it herself, right?
Oh. So you're saying she was losing her mind.
She was trying to get some more control.
Yes.
In my opinion.
They don't want things plugging into her. That could mean many things.
Yeah. She says, I don't want them plugging things into me anymore. It could be mental, or it could be physical. I've seen in documentaries, when you watch with different eyes and you go back and look at things from the 90s, you're like, whoa, dude, what was that? But they would come in and give her some kind of shot backstage. You never know what's in those things. And, Michael Jackson's doctor was probably responsible for, if allegedly, maybe. So drugs is a big part of this. Drugs is also a huge part of mystery schools. Altered states of consciousness is what we're talking about when you're talking about the demonic, AI, drugs, mystery schools, because they want you in a different dimension mentally. So Christ is the God that you meet in your right mind, when you're straight and sober, and this is the God that you encounter when you are how you should be. But when you take all these drugs and psychoactive substances, and then you go into these weird trips and you like meet the clockwork elves or the blue lady or whoever else, these are, in our opinion, would be demonic, fallen things.
So let's go. I love you use the term fallen. So, and you're making sense. I'm tracking pretty well, but certain things if they're not human, I don't know why they have temptation and there's different things. So, but again, I don't know enough, but they say Lucifer was an angel. So I don't know. So
Lucifer was a cherub. Yeah.
Okay. And like I was telling your husband this, it's like, I don't want to lose his thoughts. Remember where we are. Is that the snake, he didn't really pick up on what I was saying. The snake is everything. Am I wrong? The
no.
snake is literally like, basically, tell me when I'm wrong. And whether it's an allegory, a parable, or truth, there's a garden. Everything's great. You can have anything. There's 1,000 fruits in here. Adam said, just don't eat that apple, correct? Because God said, just don't eat the apple.
You're not ready for that.
You're not ready for the apple.
Right.
And then Eve was created from his rib. And then a snake comes.
It's a serpent. So it could be a serpentine type creature. We're not told.
Okay.
I mean, you've read David Icke's, though. It could have been, like a serpent-like.
So it says, hey, eat this apple. And why does it do that?
Because it wants other beings to be fallen like itself.
Because if you eat the apple, you're disobeying God.
Yes, because Lucifer fell, we're told, because of pride, because he wanted to be in place of God.
Okay.
So he wants to usurp God's creation whatever way he can, make you think you live in a fake matrix, make you think God is not real, make you think you can learn enough esoteric knowledge to save yourself.
And I want to go back to the drugs in a second, but don't let me forget that.
But this goes to the Kundalini, too. So
okay, so wait. So we can't eat the apple.
Not yet.
The apple, so when she eats the apple, she defies God.
What they say is Eve was deceived.
Victimhood started really early then. Taking no accountability literally fucking starts in the Garden of Eden with these women. Jeez, my knees.
Women are the gates of hell.
I mean, literally. They literally can't take accountability for the apple.
Well, here's what we're taught. Eve is not as old as Adam. She was deceived by the serpent. Adam ate willingly. He was not deceived. So it's Adam's.
I thought Adam was the victim.
Heal first.
Adam was the victim.
Not necessarily. That's not what they teach you in catechism class.
See, there's different beliefs here.
Right.
Okay, so let's go slow.
Okay.
So here we are.
So you can't blame everything on women because they're not as culpable according to Orthodoxy.
I know, but you have a certain belief system. I'm trying to get to what is the actual thing. So I don't want your religion or your belief or this or that, because I could find truths in Judaism, Buddhism. Shit, there's truth in Satanism, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I'm trying to find this one universal truth. But go ahead. So when you drink alcohol, are you letting a spirit in?
Not necessarily. Because we drink wine for sacrament. We drink wine with dinner. We get not drunk, but like it's not a sin to drink alcohol.
But it puts you in another dimension.
But yes, the trick is to not be out of your mind.
Okay.
Right?
And what does it do? It makes you
drunk?
Out of your mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could take medicine that will alter you a little bit.
When you smoke weed,
yeah,
are you allowing yourself to be vulnerable?
A lot of people say yeah.
Okay. Now, when you take mushrooms, you're saying the whatever elves?
The clockwork elves?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're saying these are bad things. Other people are saying they're good things. So some people say that this is the drugged reality. And I haven't done any drugs.
You haven't?
Not for a long time.
Okay.
And I'm not a druggie. But you haven't. Let's just say we haven't done anything for a year.
Okay.
Even though it's been longer. But let's just say. So we're in our what we call normal conscious base reality. There's a movement saying that the fucking mushrooms unlock the actual reality.
Yeah.
So what do you agree?
I disagree that is actual reality. I think the different dimensions are real, but I don't think we are ready as a species yet to be surfing through these types of, because they're all filled with deceptive things, and the spirits on those sides of things are not, I don't think they're for us.
But do they really exist?
Yeah, they exist.
And how do you access them? So you're saying when you're in mushrooms, you see clockwork.
Should we access them? Do we want to talk to them?
But do they exist? That's all I care about.
Oh, yeah. Spirit world for sure.
So, so the clockwork elves are real. Are they here now?
In a different dimension.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I take mushrooms, I can access them.
Yeah.
And what are they trying to tell me?
They'll tell you all sorts of things. My brother, he's done DMT so much that the elves told him to stop coming there and get a job. So they're like, quit coming here. We don't know any. It's very, when you listen to the testimonies of.
Why would they care about a job? They're elves. That sounds like a weird. They don't care about paychecks. They're elves.
They didn't want to see him anymore was the point. So he was trying to get some kind of cosmic knowledge, and he kept doing.
They said, get a job?
Yeah.
How's your 401k? Yes. Come on, elves don't say 401k.
That's what they told him. They said, we don't.
This is where you get another hole, and there's another hole. I'm little holes in these stories.
Well, see, the hole also is like all of these trips are also subjective too. But then you see the same things over and over. Like people say that.
You know what's so wild, on a side note, is that we talk about all this mind control, MKUltra, and you're always dressed like a Disney princess. Which is great. Which I really, really love that about you, because you are pure.
Oh.
And I believe that. The little bit I know you give off a pure vibe.
Thank you.
And so, and I think this world needs purity. And I think that when I don't want it to be run by evil, but there's a coding of it.
Yeah.
And I said this to Jack Osborne, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Why I say the world is running on these, like you say, energies. We're on the same page with that. And evils, because I feel like we're always overcoming something. It's not just like, hey, man, here's a plate of sushi. And you know what? Like, we have to make good things happen. They don't always happen. I feel like we're overcoming a lot of strife in our world. Am I wrong to say that?
No, we are definitely,
Unnecessarily put there, by the way.
we're told that we are in an arena like a gladiator in
Mhm.
Rome, and the battle is against things that you can't see.
Yes,
Right.
I believe that.
And so, in order to protect ourselves and to have some kind of victories in our life, so we do the warfare in a spiritual way. So, that's praying, that's when you get into all of this stuff and it's so overwhelming and you feel like despair, like a lot of people are feeling despair about Epstein files and waking up and stuff, right? So you kind of have to scale down your attitude about what you can change and what you can't.
Yeah, because people will get so overwhelmed they'll do nothing. Other people will lose their mind.
Yeah.
And other people just will not participate because it's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through dark nights of the soul definitely many times, and the church helped me with that in a therapeutic way, knowing all of the matrix,
Yes.
right, and trying to still live amongst the normies.
Yes.
And
But I am compelled to do something. That's why I talk about
yes,
it.
okay, so the thing that you can do is just you have to start on yourself first, right?
Good point.
You can only control the things that you can control. That is your attitude. That is how you treat people. That is how you pray, how you give to charity, how you control your anger. Just the simple virtues. And so that's where the church really helps. It's like, it's not trying to make heroes that go out and like change the world and take over Cuba and like solve all of these problems. Like the problem is right here first. And this is the thing that will take you your whole life to solve. So you really just have to start with the inner person, and then things will get better by providence if everybody turns inward. It's a very radical accountability, to use that word. All of the things in my life, in a way, are my own fault.
I love the way you look
Right.
at that.
To a certain extent, some people are, they're tortured and they're held like physically, and bad things happen to them. But by and large, everything that the way your life turns out is really up to you.
Manifestation is real, correct?
We call it synergy. So God has what he would like as a father. Your dad wants you to be successful. He wants you to have these things. He wants you to be happy. So we co-create, they say, with God. Like, it's not a programmable robot, but you are having a relationship in synergy with God to manifest
Things.
his will, but also the things that you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're big into serving the God, and always God is the number one, which I understand that.
But it's not, it's interesting because it's not service in the way that you would think of.
No, I don't.
Well, Allah, that's a good example because that is like a slave-master dynamic. But God in our church is a father figure.
And
right?
wants you to do well.
Yeah, and doesn't need things. He doesn't need sacrifices of blood and grain and beer and all of these things that a Anunnaki would need, because he created all of those things for us to enjoy. Right? We don't have to kill our babies to give back to God. But we do co-create in synergy, they say, and manifest beauty in the world as a partnership, as a relationship.
Is that why abortion is so big?
Because people are made in the image of God. That's why we don't cover our face like you would in Islam. And you don't kill people, and you respect them in to a certain degree, because everybody is an image bearer of God.
And so why are people so pro-abortion? To me, I think it's partially a sacrifice. No,
I do
it is
too.
not partially. It is a sacrifice.
Well, they have said, like Cosmopolitan magazine actually had a article about, how can you make your abortion some kind of blood sacrifice. Um,
Evil. To me, it's couched as freedom for women and, a form of birth control. But if it's 2026, and if you're getting pregnant without wanting to in 2026, with all the different ways to prevent it, that's insane. And so to me, it is some sort of
well, we would also say, that harms the
sacrifice.
mother too. That kind of procedure
Yes.
is harmful to your body. It's not just something that you can
Yes.
get rid of without consequence, right?
No.
And no, we don't murder. So
No, I'm thinking it's because I think that they literally sacrifice babies when they do it.
I don't think every single mother who has that inclination is.
No, I know. You
yeah.
take the day after pill. You
Yeah.
can do it. Listen, I'm not crazy with it. If it happens, you gotta, you want to take care of it. Take care of it within the reasonable window. That's my belief. But also, it's try to prevent it as much as you can getting pregnant. I'm not against sex casually. Okay, are you against that?
Casually, that's not my personality to start.
But are you okay if could you have a friend that was casually having sex?
Yeah, we could be friends.
Okay.
But I would say that's probably not in your best interest.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I care about you.
Yeah.
That's why I would say don't get an abortion because that's going to harm you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that we're image bearers of God, so we don't kill our fellow human beings, even in the womb. But that all comes out of secularism and modernity. So people have disconnected the
that godlessness,
sacredness of life. They don't view life as sacred because if evolution is true, then everything is random and nothing means anything.
It's crazy, and people can compartmentalize so much by not respecting life, and you can see it how it's happening more and more now. It's insane. People literally just are completely detached because of their own self-serving interests. Let's go to your book. What do you want to tell me?
Oh, well, this was so interesting. So this is like the new stuff that I was working on.
Look at all of those notes.
This is just about the Dalai Lama.
Okay.
So curious names popping up in the Epstein files was the Dalai Lama. And he had a list of books that Jeffrey Epstein had ordered from Amazon all about Tantra. So like Secrets of Tantra, Secrets of Sex Magic, Kabbalism, all stuff that we've been talking about today. So Epstein was very heavily interested in the Tantra. And this is a branch of Buddhism that is one of the most recent, right? So I know you have a soft spot for Buddha, but it has always been a very misogynistic religion.
Buddha is a misogynist?
Oh, big time. Big time. Buddha, he believed that women were walking latrines. He would say. So he actually left his wife and child to go on his ascetic path, right? When he was raised as a prince. And after one night of orgies, he wakes up and he's like, these girls are just a bunch of hoes, tricks and hoes. And he goes on this ascetic path and he figures out in his mind that all life is suffering and all life comes through women, through birth. Therefore, women are evil and the gates of hell.
Why are they the gates of hell?
Because life is suffering. It's all...
oh, well, someone else believes that. You were doing a joke about it.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Women are the gates of hell.
So wait.
Yes.
Their vaginas are the pathway?
Yeah. To hell. Because it's incarnation. Okay, so also in the karmic wheel of Buddhist thought, you have to be reincarnated as a man first before you can go on. So you have this biological glass ceiling if you want to be a woman Buddhist, because men are higher up on the incarnation than women.
That's crazy because Buddhism always seems like it's about love and...
Right.
Wow.
Well, there's at least 4 different schools of Buddhism, but this is like the very early, what he would have taught his disciples, meditate on dead bodies because you don't want to be like inflamed with lust and make more children for this suffering world. Okay, so the goal, tell me if I'm wrong here.
Meditate on a dead body.
Yes. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the goal of Buddhism is like nirvana, right?
I don't know enough about it. I just give an
okay.
example of another. I'm just saying it's like you have your Orthodoxy. Jews believe they're Jews. Islam believes they're Buddhism. I'm just using an example as like people believe so many different things. So it's like, how do we include everybody, but yet find out? And I think you're very, what is the word, staunch? I think you believe what you believe to be the ultimate truth.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, if you talk to somebody else, it might be like this. But the Dalai Lama, before we go any further, it seems like there's a lot of smoke around that dude.
Yes. And so
he seems like a weirdo, which is crazy to say.
And he has a lot of connections with Hollywood. So he used Hollywood as kind of like a diplomatic agents to get these ideas in the West. Tantra, Kundalini, yoga, and they would say, talking about sorcery and black magic, this is literally, they call it the Varma Marg, the way of the left-hand path, or the use of women to apotheosis. So what they would say is that a yogi, a guru, a lama would sleep with women and drain their energy like a battery.
Okay.
And throw away the husk when they're done. So like a nutshell or something.
So you have sex with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then by having sex with them, you take their energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do with it?
You internalize it into yourself. Okay, it gets really intricate, and we're going to do like a 3-part series show on this. So you have your real woman that you use. This is Tantra, okay? This is like Sting.
Sting.
Yeah,
yes.
Tantra.
Tantra is not achieving orgasm, correct?
Yes, you're correct. You drain all of their gynergy. They call it female energy, right? Like gyno. You transmute it in yourself, and then you make intergalactic goddesses in your mind that you have sex with. And then the 3rd stage is incorporating all of these female deities that you made, and you are now a sort of like androgynous yogi. So we have androgyny again as a theme. So, and yogis think that they can actually like heal you with their
So it's not sex
phallus.
with women, it's sex with minors.
Right. In the traditional Tantra, yes. Old women or women over 20, women who've hit the wall, they would say, they call them like jackal face, they call them old hag, they call them owl.
What religion did this?
This is Tantra Buddhism. This is what you would find in Tibet, Dalai Lama.
Oh my God.
Right. So it is.
So many people listen to this.
Buddha's mother, actually, she died very shortly after giving birth to him. And this is kind of central to their religion because it is about getting rid of feminine energy, or taking it all into yourself and discarding the shells.
I would think that women would take your energy because they're the receptors.
Yeah, that's weird, right?
But you're giving them, you're taking their energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the Kundalini is the serpent.
What's the Kundalini?
So this is what the goal of the yoga that they use, and the sex magic that they use.
Yoga all the time.
They call it the serpent that sits at the bottom of your spine in your Muladhara chakra. And they equate this with Lucifer, with the lightning, with the serpent power, right? It's the snake that goes up your spine during orgasm, they say.
So you're saying when a man has an orgasm, the feeling he's getting is figuratively or actually like a serpent going up your spine?
It's supposed to be an energy wave that goes up the spine like a serpent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
But sex is good. Sex was created to make more image bearers of God, right? But when you take it and you invert it. And that's a part of their religion too, is the law of inversion, they say. So anything that is gross will help you on your path to enlightenment. Anything that is like disgusting becomes sacred. That's why they will eat a lot of bodily fluids. So if you're talking about like Aleister Crowley magic and Kenneth Grant, who takes a lot from Tantra and yoga, they would make something called cakes of light.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
It sounds disgusting.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah, I don't even know, but
Okay.
I can imagine.
We can move on.
Oh gosh. They did this in what? Kundalini?
In Tantra,
And
there is a priestess, okay, called a mudra, and she's usually young, under 16 probably. They would have her in a ritual, and what they want from her is
oh gosh.
they call them emanations or kalas. It's just bodily fluid from inside.
Oh gosh.
And they have all of these different categories
Oh gosh.
for
oh gosh. I
like
can imagine.
time of the month
Oh, God,
and all of that.
I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to. This is like, and then by doing this, they're getting power.
Yes.
Oh gosh. And that's in Kundalini?
This is Kundalini yoga. This is Tantra, Tibetan Tantra. This is OTO, Aleister Crowley's Ordo Templi Orientis. So what he did was trying to take Eastern magic, this stuff, and blend it with Western magic or Kabbalah and make something super crazy that can allow women to channel demons and aliens.
So is anything good?
Yes, the whole world is good. Everything created is good.
So if I see a place that has Kundalini yoga, I can't do it anymore?
No, don't do that.
Wow. It's all over this town.
I mean, you could do calisthenics, you can do Pilates, but okay, so here's a article called 8 Lectures on Yoga by Aleister Crowley. We know him, right? And he goes through it. Yoga means union. Yoga means union. You can see he says it like 10 times on the same page. So what you are doing is yoking yourself like a ox, a union, a yoke. Like, you know how oxes have two of them go together on one yoke. Does that make sense? So you're yoking yourself to
What's a yoke?
It's the thing that you put on 2 oxes so that they can walk together.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what you're doing with yoga, is you are yoking yourself to another spirit.
A woman said once you do the yoga poses, you can't do them because you are then summoning those spirits.
That's what
So
they
you're
say.
telling me if I were to do a yoga pose, it's summoning the spirits? If I'm not chanting.
If I went down and did downward dog and like
Yes.
stretched out, I don't think so.
Okay. So like frog pose.
But if we're sitting there meditating and going
Yeah,
and
we do that.
visualizing and doing all that stuff, yes, that is the part that is
So-
opening yourself up to be possessed or incarnate other spirits.
So what yoga can you do, if any?
I just wouldn't do yoga. I mean, I might do the stretch, but don't.
The
like,
stretches are so good.
Yeah, like you can do the calisthenic part of it or the Pilates part, but the spiritual aspect of it is what I'm talking about right here.
Does it have to be like and all that? I don't know.
Om?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Oh my gosh.
It's interesting because I've lived with a lot of hippies. I live with a lot of like magicians, and they're super kind. They're super gentle. They're very meek creatures. If you're thinking about all of the girls in your yoga class, they're just very like
But
kind and gentle. And so they're very susceptible to deception.
are the
Obviously.
magicians deceptors?
Yes.
Yeah, see, here's what I think that you've gone through. Right? In a little bit I know you. So you said you've lived with what? Hippies?
Yeah.
Magicians?
Yeah.
Musicians?
Yeah.
Photographers?
No.
Okay. Those are what we call entry-level creeps. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So they act like hippie. Here's how a hippie is a creep. A hippie is a grifter and a fake, right? They're like, hey, man, peace and love, right? And then they get on your place and they sleep on your couch and you can't get them to leave.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Share brother.
Yeah, share brother. And they guilt you and they manipulate you.
Yeah.
Share brother. That was so real right there. And so, hey, you know, and they're probably pedos, some of them, because they're like, well, it's just like we're stretching.
Yeah.
It's love. And they'll get you when you're.
Yeah. I've seen that. So that's the problem I have with communal living. There's always like some super old creeps who just never grew up and got their own wife and they just want to like creep on the young girls. And so I know exactly where you're coming from.
And they're completely, the women they're still not fully mature
Naive.
yet.
Yeah.
And so, or a magician for sure. Hey, you want to see a chick? And that's what I call non-charming nerd or whatever, creep, whatever, because he's basically doesn't have the ability to just talk to a woman and it's not an equal thing of age or world experience. And so he'll, hey, look at this. And then it's like, ooh, mystical. And then the girl's impressed and then that makes her more vulnerable. So, you know, there's usually a fatherless figure. Listen, there's a lot to say within this subject, but I hate it when people that's why I have such problems with, and this isn't political, and I want to stand what we're talking about, but this is why I have problems with, and it happens in all political parties, any minds group thing is bad. Any being being loyal to I'm just going to be loyal because this is my friend. You know, any label you're loyal to is just not healthy. That's my sister, so I know that she stole, but that's my sister. It's like, no, that's my mom, or this is my friend. It's like we should be loyal to people's behavior. You know what they did, and so, you know, I'm not. People think I'm a right winger, but I'm not. I'm just common sense, but I'm closer to that than I am a wild liberal, and I used to like the open-mindedness of liberalism, but why I think there's a lot of hypocrisy there, and there is creeps and dirtiness and disgustingness on the right side as well, is that they pose the kindness angle. The right doesn't pose the kindness angle. They're not assholes, but they're like, we're not just going to kiss your ass because you're this, or this. And so there's a fakeness, i.e. a trick.
Performative kindness.
Exactly. Performing like a magician. Like a hippie, like, hey, share brother. You know, there's a reason why you just said that, and it reminded me the episode of King of the Hill I did. I played a hippie, and my wife, the hippie in the episode, was who? Jennifer Aniston. And she also played my hippie wife. And I was like, you don't want to share? And why is that in the zeitgeist? Because it's real.
Yeah.
It's not just made up. Yeah. So it's there. So when these people do this shit, it's fake.
So these gurus are the same idea.
100%.
Yogis, lamas,
all
these
bullshit.
Guys, they're just want to heal you with their diamond phallus.
And that's your dick.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Why is it a diamond?
That's just what they call it, the diamond path, because it's hard.
Diamond dick.
It's hard.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So the girl's the lotus. And the sorcerer, the tantric sorcerer, would be the diamond.
Okay, so I'm going to get to that. But so here's where I have a problem with society and hypocrisy. Here's the first bit of hypocrisy I'm picking out, besides what I just said. Again, if you don't act like you're like super a good person, then you have more leeway than when you act like you're a good person and then you're doing this bullshit, okay? And then guilting and gaslighting somebody that doesn't agree with you. But let's say a lot of people say the mind isn't formed until 25, right? So society will say a guy who's 40 with a 25-year-old, that's fucking disgusting, right? Which it wasn't for a long time, right? So at what point does there age? But there's also 25-year-olds that have the mind of a 50-year-old. And there's also 25-year-olds that are highly immature. And there's also 40-year-olds that have the mind of a 16-year-old. mind, guys. Like, you know what I mean? You agree with that statement? With the women thing is that you can't sit there and praise a woman and say a woman is a victim. But then on the other hand, praise a woman for making $50 million on OnlyFans when she's 20 and call that feminism progression.
Exactly.
What are we doing? It's either you're a victim of all the creeps and pedos that paid and you just got over on them, but continuing the cycle, you're making out on it financially, but what's the price? Or you're a victim over here if you're not making any money.
That's why we go around and we point out fallacies a lot.
That means lies?
Yeah.
Because you also said the fallacy was a penis.
No, phallus.
Okay.
With a PH.
All right. You got what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
It's a little confusing.
No, definitely. And there's so many dialectics that are being managed today to corral people into certain cult-like groups.
100%. There's more cults now than ever. They're just not considered cults.
Oh, yeah. We did a show about, what did I call micro cults. So instead of media now, you have micro cults of, I'm with Candace Owen, I'm with Tucker Carlson, I'm with this guy, that guy, right? So you have all of these followers in their little micro cults that can grow into political movements that storm the Capitol on January 6th, you know? So those are real things that control people. So what you're saying is it's a double standard to talk about age gap relationships on one hand and then OnlyFans on the other, right?
Yeah, you can't be saying a girl who's 5 years older is a victim.
Right.
And then a girl who's 5 years younger who makes $50 million is a hero. When she literally financially didn't victimize, took from these guys. So she's smart. She figured it out. But it doesn't make her... Is she more mature?
Right.
So is she allowed to do this, which is more sexualized?
So what we're talking about is consistencies in worldview.
Yes.
And that's kind of what Jay is very good at, is pointing out inconsistencies like you just did. Like, why is it okay for this and not okay for that? And then people have to sit back and think, oh, okay, I didn't think of it that way. So...
Like, for instance, just stay with me because you're a female, correct? You're an OG recipe female, correct?
Yeah.
I believe that. So I told this joke about it, and some lady hollered at me who was a person that worked in sex. I'm not going to call her a sex worker. She was a professional hooer. And she said, what's wrong with OnlyFans? And I said, because what's your soul worth? So, for instance... You can make $50 million, and that's great that you're set up and you're safe for life. How did you do it? Okay. Well, you didn't hurt yourself, and you say you got a bunch of money from creeps, and you con them with them because they think they're getting you, you're getting them. Okay. A win again. You took agency as a female, so you're in control of yourself. A win again. But what message are you sending to the female community?
Yeah.
And to young girls?
Exactly.
You're creating a dark lineage that you're, what you say, the most beautiful parts that I believe the world is run by women, the desire to be with women, and women control the population. Without women, we're not going to have more of us. Okay, so I was raised to be a dynamic, the most important thing in the world. I've had fun, so I've gone on the lust train. So now we're basically saying this all monetized commodity, and it's bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's...
But women shouldn't be taken advantage of either. So I see their point.
Right. So So how would we explain it is men and women are not separated. They're not able, there is no men without women. There's no women without men.
Okay.
Right? It's like if you wanted a positive Eastern example, it would be the yin yang, right? The Tao. Male and female are just two sides of the same thing. So that's where these new ideas like feminism and the red pill are dividing people in these gender wars, and they're putting them in their two separate camps that can more easily be controlled and steered the way that you want them to. If you split men and women down the center, you've like created an enemy of everyone almost, right? And the feminism is going against biology, right?
Why?
Because, well, in the very beginning of the feminist movement, it was about the post-industrial world. You know, the Industrial Revolution, where everybody went from more agrarian lifestyles to the city and the factory. Now we're producing all of these things that women used to be able to produce at home. Textiles, food, canned food, just anything that you can make while you have children running around, right? Was taken away from women and put in a factory setting. So now you have to go get a job at a factory as a man or woman to produce the same goods that you can at a homestead.
And so, well, you don't, okay, so they would call you a trad wife.
I would not call it. I think that's a kinky thing.
Why?
I just think that's more performative, like you were talking about. Because a lot of these trad wife accounts came out as not even women, or they were like Indian men or Pakistani men. Yeah. So a lot of the big trad wife accounts are not real.
AI?
No, just like grifters.
But the guy in the picture that looks like the wife is he an Indian man?
No. They would say, they would post a picture of a woman and say, I'm a trad wife, and say all this like crazy things.
But they show them making bread.
It's not real.
Well, who's making the bread?
I mean, are you talking about like influencers or?
Yeah, I'm saying
Okay.
what your belief system is. What?
Some are real. Like, are you talking about like Nara Smith or?
No, there's trad wives
Yeah.
for sure. They make
Okay.
everything. They bake everything.
Yeah.
And they're what you call a stay-at-home mother. They've had children. They're with
Right.
their husband. The husband goes out and earns money.
Yeah.
And they keep the homestead.
Yeah.
So that would be a trad wife.
But what I was talking about was even before that. Like, the husband wouldn't usually leave the homestead to go to a job.
Because
Pre-industrial world.
So instead of catching the fish and bringing it home and the wife cooks it, we now go and buy canned tuna?
Yes. So you could put money in between the earth and your needs. So prior to, like, let's say the 1800s, you would all live on a little farm or a homestead, or your extended family would also live there. You would till your land. You would have your animals. She would be making the clothes. She would be preparing the food, processing the food, right? So you have your roles, your traditional gender roles, because she can't go very far away from toddlers like he can. And that's another thing that goes against biology, because it has this question of, if you have a child, are you one person or are you like two people, because your body sustains that baby.
But how is feminism against biology?
Okay, so after they have industrialized everything that a woman used to be able to do and like make money on her own, like if she made extra clothes and she could sell them at the market or whatever. So you have this agency pre-industrial revolution that you didn't have after that for women. Does that make sense? So then you have the question of, is a woman a person if she can't produce all of these things like they used to be able to do? Now that a factory is producing these things, now you're thinking of people in the terms of like widgets and consumption, production, money, instead of like, I am a sacred, valuable child of God. Now you're just like a number. You're a factory worker. You're only what you can produce. So now a woman has no way to like naturally make an income, and the guy has to go out to the factory and get the money, bring it back, then they can spend it. They're just putting all of these middlemen in between you and just like getting
And
fed and having a family.
but women could go out and get a job
Right now or back then?
back then. Well, maybe they weren't allowed back then.
Well, they not at first. Okay, so
it
then,
made them very highly reliable on the man.
then you have entire factories populated by women when they could have been at home in their own house making things. Now they're sitting in this.
Why were they doing that? Because the men were at war?
Because you need money now.
Or men were at war?
That's a part of it after World War II. But since you need like literal
But the man was
currency-
making the money.
When?
He went out to work.
In the...
Let's say you were married. Are these single women or non?
Yeah, single and married. Because everybody needs an income now. You can't just like go and like milk your cow and make your cheese. Now you have to have this bank in between you. You have a mortgage. So you have these questions like, what value are women in society? And the feminists are trying to address this. In early wave feminism, this is what they're trying to figure out. Like after the Enlightenment, if we're all just quantifiable tallies on a paper, then what is the value of a woman? And so these are the questions that they're trying to address. They're also trying to address things like child marriage, which was huge back then. So in a lot of the states, you would be able to marry a 12-year-old.
When did these laws change?
So that's a good question. In the 1800s, I don't have the exact date right here. Maybe I have it. But one of the first lawmakers that was a woman was trying to get the age of consent or marriage raised to 18.
When was it not?
Prior to this.
What year? 30s?
Early 1800s.
So it was before the 1800s. Oh, gosh. Oh.
So here's the thing that feminists, they're like, you need to come and try and vote because a lot of these guys are trying to marry child brides.
So this is good then. That's a pro-feminism.
So it's pro-woman.
Yeah, that's
right?
good.
Pro-protecting children, pro-letting girls grow up to a certain age before they're
So what's
expected
wrong
to-
with that?
Nothing. Then
Sounds like feminism is doing a lot of good.
Well, you get other waves of feminism. So there's two paths. There's called the feminism of care, which is cares about women, and the feminism of freedom, which says a woman has the freedom to do anything like a man can do, or even
That's
more.
when they want to start yapping.
Yes. Well, and that's when they
Peace standing up.
they want
No phallus.
the sexual liberation to be
Meaning
equal.
go out there and have fun.
Yeah. And
Well, they have more of a consequence than a man.
right. And to do this, they need birth control pills. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what's going against biology. You cannot go out and party like a man because you're going to fall pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And going against your biology, taking pills that will harm your reproduction.
Yeah, the birth controls are coming out
Okay,
more and more.
so
They're terrible
this is
for you.
against biology. This is saying men and women are equal in every way, interchangeable in every way, just like a factory widget. There is no such thing as men and women or their sacred roles, right?
Yeah, and they're doing that more and more now. They're trying to.
Now it's just like amorphous
Yeah,
blob.
androgynous.
And this is where it steers into being harmful for women, the idea of feminism, because it goes into transhumanism, right? So going over your biology by birth control, by surgery, by hormone replacement or whatever, we would see that as wrong. And on the steps to transhumanism, which is integrating your biology with machines.
No, I
Does that make sense?
I
Like
get
why
all that.
I would be
1000%. It's
anti-feminism.
the
of
barriers.
today.
It started here,
Right.
and then this little thing takes away. It's just going away at it slowly but surely. So it's like get out, get the job,
And
take
then-
away your creativity. Oh, now he went to get the job. He's not there. And then you get the job. And then, you know what? You're already doing what that guy does. Do this. And then everything. And then, you know what? You can be what you want. i.e. trans, you can be whatever you want. It's all a slope.
It is a slope, and it's a delusion that has a progression.
And saying this stuff is considered hate speech, as opposed to we're just examining it.
I love women. I think they're wonderful creatures.
I agree.
I don't want anybody to be hurt or in pain or do anything to harm themselves. So.
But the feminist movement has co-opted a lot of. So what do you think a woman should be?
Well,
and what is lesbianism? Is lesbianism an actual feeling, or is it complete hurt of the man?
What we would say is sexuality is a God-given, we call them the passions, but they're disordered if you do not respect the boundaries.
Is every lesbian hurt by a man? That's my
probably. I mean, I think that's why a lot of women turn to lesbianism, because they are just tired of.
There's a lot of them. There's definitely a good amount. You can argue this. There are what we call some platinum plated that are just never been with a man. And there's a couple women I'm thinking of right now that seem like they've been born that way. But I don't know. I don't know enough about it. But there's definitely some that have been hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
So where are you at with the feminism?
Well, like I was explaining, if you ask people what is a feminist, you're going to get 100 different answers. You're not going to get anybody who's read like 10 books on feminism like I have, or listened to 100 podcasts about it, or like looked into all of the different avenues and where it's going, right?
Do you think a woman should be there to support her man?
Of course. I think men and women need each other. And the way that they say it is like a head and a body. You can't have one without the other. Each one is a monster on its own, right? So the woman would represent the body. She is the feelings. She is the thing that you're trying to protect at all times. And the head is where you're going, right? It's like you can't have two people steering a car if you grab
So you think
the
men
wheel.
should be in control?
I think they need to take the responsibility as leaders, because a man on his own, or if he's not leading, he's not helping. If that makes sense. Like, if you're not in charge, you're kind of a dead weight to a woman. It's not a neutral
It's
thing.
so true. So if you are, that's so true. So it's interesting too. If I were to work with somebody and I took charge of the situation, they would say I'm being a toxic male.
No,
you wouldn't, but I'm saying it's out there. You know this, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of, have you seen that new documentary, the Manosphere?
No, but it looks like honestly, to be honest with you, it looks like some of the editing is really obvious.
Okay, so it's super corny what they are advertising to young men as manly and masculine.
So whose side are you on, the documentarian or the manospheres?
The documentary. Yeah.
Well, it looks like though he edited some of this shit.
Well, I didn't even need to see that too.
I didn't watch it.
No, I already had all my thoughts about this worked out anyways. But like you're saying, it's a very performative, fake, manly. It's not actually.
Yeah, that's not real man.
It's super corny.
Yeah.
It's very materialistic. It's like what a 10-year-old would think.
I didn't see it, but I can only imagine. It's like, here's my drip, these are my bitches, that type of shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't even watched it. What I'm saying is the man should protect the woman, provide for the woman. I mean, traditionally you should have children, but, I'm not a great example. I haven't had kids. Maybe I could still if I want to, but I haven't, I've been too self-involved. So, but the woman there should be there for the man to have his back and I think there's two different strengths, like you said, but the man should be physically and ready to protect, and the woman should be emotionally. But I could be more emotional than some women. Some women are very cold, and there's some women that are very tough.
Yeah, but anger is an emotion.
Yeah,
and so a lot of guys have lots of anger.
Yeah,
but
there's also women that have anger.
Oh yeah.
But a woman has to allow the man. Like when you argue, this is going to be a tense subject, but you have to allow the man to lead. But, how many women don't want to do that?
Yeah, that's true. In Genesis,
But also, I can probably make a loaf of bread better than a lot of women. Is that traditional gender?
we're not super strict on that.
I can clean. Is that traditional? I mean, I'm just saying there's certain things I can do really well that's traditional woman, but I also can be a dude and get very intense.
So the word help meet in Genesis, right?
Help me, it's two words.
Help meet.
Oh, help
Like
me.
when God said, it's not good for Adam to be here alone. I'm going to make him a help. The word in English is help meet, right? The word in Hebrew is actually Ezer Kenegdo, which has a lot of like philosophical connotations. It means like perfect match, rescuer, just complementary in every way, right? You can't have one without the other. And God even refers to himself as the rescuer of Israel in some places with this word, right? This feminine word. And so that is what the dynamic that we talk about is. You cannot separate them, and like you can't force your body to obey you. You can only create the conditions for it to thrive. Does that make sense? Like, can you force your heart to beat?
No.
Can you force a bowel movement?
No.
Can you force an orgasm? Can
Can
you force your blood to circulate in your lymph? This is all things that the only thing that you can do as the head is create those optimal conditions for it to thrive, right? So this is how the Orthodox would explain a male-female relationship or marriage.
Okay. Is this your new book?
This is an old book, but this is all the new stuff I've been working on about the Kundalini and Dalai Lama and yoga, and this is the old
I have this book.
Oh, good.
I just want to say we'll do it in another pod because I wanted to talk to you about this a lot.
Okay.
But all the symbolisms on Hollywood Boulevard, where they have the Oscars.
Do you remember Hollywood Highland Complex?
Yes.
And they had Anunnakis on the bridge.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Is it?
If you go to Hollywood and Highland, you can see the Anunnakis. This is crazy. This is her book, by the way. Weird stuff. So listen, you got to get it. Listen, where can they find you?
YouTube, Jamie Hanshaw.
Yeah.
I always do shows with Jay.
Yeah.
jaysanalysis.com, and I'm on Twitter, Jamie Hanshaw Dyer.
Okay.
And all of that.
Let's go to for a second.
Okay.
When was the Hollywood Highland made?
It was like 2000 or something.
Okay. So they designed it.
Uh-huh.
Now, do you see the way it lights up at night?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like what?
Babylon.
Yep.
Techno Babylon. That's actually from that movie, D.W. Griffith, Intolerance. So that was the set of that movie.
Okay. So are they copying the set of his movie, or are they actually summoning energies?
Depends on who you ask.
So then the Anunnaki are there.
Uh-huh.
So was that in the movie?
Yeah.
So here's a great example, and this is where we're going to end it. With Satanism, all this stuff. So if I were to do a scene in a movie, for instance, I wore something that's covering my phallus, and the woman wears something that's covering her vagine, right? And it's called a simulated sex scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now some things, sometimes they happen, whatever. I used to know a porno chick, and she would say she's acting. And I would say, no. You could be acting, faking your feelings, but those genitals are touching and going in. So it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, yeah, but it wasn't like I was into it. So she took acting, but it's physically happening. When we act, we simulate it. She physicalized it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the effects, whatever happens with sex, is going to happen, whether they're not into it or not. The same goes to this thing that we're saying. This guy puts it in one of the first movies ever, D.W. Griffith. They then recreate old Hollywood to look like his set and Babylon and all this stuff. He could be doing it to tell a story or initiating the actual ritual, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They think they're then copying it, or they're actually want to continue the ritual, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets confusing for a lot of people. The doing it is making it real. That's what people have to accept.
What you're describing is called self-transformative psychodrama.
Meaning?
Meaning, in occult, let's say real quick, if you want to be a vampire, right? Let's say that's your goal. You start wearing all black. You only go out at night. You start drinking blood. You sleep in a coffin. You don't eat garlic, okay?
You do the things then traditionally they say.
Yes.
Even though we don't know if they're real or not.
Yes. You do these things.
Fake it till you make it.
Bingo. Yep. And that there's actually a name for that, and it's called that.
So faking it till you make it is on many levels. Think about that. I have done that on myself. I was delusional till I became something, and I really was delusional.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can agree or disagree if I've made something of myself. The same is to be said, like you just said, with acting. Some people they start inward or outward. They don't find the character, so they start doing mannerisms and the voice and all these different things until they feel that they've become somebody else. And maybe through that, they're awarded something. Mm-hmm. They created it, but they didn't know what it was. They faked it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yep. This is how they say you can become a werewolf, a vampire, a god or a goddess or what have you.
It's a good place to end it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was really fun.
Anyone's talking. They're blockers.
That's not why I came to Hollywood.
Fucking backwards.
Bullshit.
I hate to break it to you.